tiptoe by the garden of the willow tree. Come tiptoe through the tulips with me. Lady, in flowers we'll stray, we'll keep the showers away. And if I kiss you in the garden, in the moonlight, will you pardon me and tiptoe through the tulips with me? Anyway, I would like to thank, my name is Linda Quinlan and I'm emceeing.
Nice bow tie.
Welcome, everybody. I get to have notes. I'd like to thank Nick and Kat Allen for sharing this beautiful space with us. And I'd like to thank Siobhan over there, collecting donations. She's also known as Bon Bon, which is easier to remember. And Rainbow Bridge for collecting donations and helping this project get off the ground. Orca for doing the show. And Ann Charles, who is our timekeeper right here. So when she does 3, that means 3 minutes left, not you've done 3 minutes, right?
No, 3 minutes have elapsed.
Oh, okay, there you go.
And
All right.
2 minutes left then.
We have time if anybody else would like to sign up to read tonight, if they're feeling inspired and want to come up and do it. So,
When's the next
I don't know when.
one? February 10th?
February 10th, next one. But I'll send out, flyers and whatnot so people will know. Anyway, first reader is going to be Joaquin Sky. Come on up. Siquan.
That is the first time I've heard my name pronounced that way. I've been called iguana. I like iguanas. I wonder if you would all join me, please, in a moment of silence for Renee Good, if we could. Thanks, everybody. So my name is Sequana Sky. A few months after I moved to Vermont a while ago, I got a housemate, and as housemates go, things were okay. We were getting along okay, except for when it came to money. I would pay him rent. He was supposed to take care of the bills. He didn't always do that. He did a little bit of writing on the side. He did some editing on the side. He had just gotten a huge advance from an author to edit his book. He had spent the advance and hadn't started on the work yet, and was very anxious about this writer coming to get him. So one day I'm coming back from grocery store, and I've got 2 bags in my hand, and this was so long ago that they were plastic bags. Put the plastic bags on the deck, and there was a bowl of water that I had put water in to feed for the birds, and it had frozen. It was a glass bowl. So I picked it up to dump the water out. The bowl cracked in half and cut my pinky, and blood started pouring out. So I'm a nurse. I know I'm supposed to keep my hand up here, but it's kind of hard to keep your hand up here when you're trying to get to the door, get to my phone, go inside, call 911. Tried to call 911, didn't get through. Called my neighbor, Pam, and I said, you got to come get me. So she comes over to get me. I get in the car. I'm bleeding like everywhere. This thing is crazy. And I'm holding it up, and I've got my head between my knees so I don't faint. And I glance over at her, and she's pale white. And I think one of us has got to get me there. So she does get us there. I get into the room and to the emergency room, and they look at it, and I didn't cut a tendon. It was just bleeding everywhere. I think maybe a couple stitches. So as I'm getting ready to go out, 2 state troopers show up in the door. And they say, "Are you Sequana Sky?" They pronounce it right. Are you Sequana Sky? And I'm like, "Yeah." And they said, "Oh, we're just checking to make sure you're okay." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm okay, I'm fine." So my neighbor brings me back to the house, and I'm kind of excited to tell my housemate about this weird thing that happened. And I go running up on the deck, and my bags of groceries, bloody as they are, still there, drops of blood on the stairs leading up to the deck. I go running up, and he opens the door, and he says in his best Papa Bear voice, "Where you been?" And I said, "What?" And he said, "Where you been?" And I held up my finger. I said, "What's going on?" He said, "Well, 2 state troopers showed up at the door a few minutes ago." I said, "Really?" He said, "I was sure that the writer had sent them to the house to arrest me." And I didn't really want to tell him the background of the story, because his story is pretty good. But I did tell him the background of the story. I said, "Well, this is what happened." And he said, "Well, they come to the door, they walk up the stairs, they see the blood on the stairs, they see the blood on the bags, and when he opens the door, he has an apron on, and his hands," true story, "and his hands have water all over and soap suds because he's been washing dishes." This man never washed dishes, but this day he decided to wash dishes as the cops show up at the door. What I found out was that if you dial even 911, it goes through and they can find you. So they showed up at the house, seeing all this blood in this guy with water on his hands. And here I am in the emergency department. And that's my story.
Okay, now I'd like to welcome Erica Reel to the stage. Come on, Erica.
So my name is Erica. My pronouns are they, them. I'm going to tell you about the day my life changed forever. 6 years ago in Barrie, I am at home drinking, watching a movie, and a friend calls me up and tells me to look at my socials. I look at my socials. There is a baker in Barrie who is running for some elected thing and pronounces on his socials, "There's no homosexuals in Barrie." And I'm sitting there, and I look at my partner, and I'm like, "What?" Because here I am, a queer in Barrie. And so I FaceTime my friend, and I'm like, "What the hell?" And she's like, "Yeah, we got to do something about this." So we're thinking, and I'm like, "I like to bake, you like to bake, he's a baker, let's totally screw this guy and have a bake sale in Barrie." Right? And she's like, "Yeah, let's call a couple people. They all like to bake." So come June, which is Pride Month, we have a bake sale in Barrie. And then, lo and behold, everybody comes out and brings out their baked goods, and we have Baked with Pride in Barrie. This is 6 years ago. In somebody's backyard, we have a lawn sale, we have some pride flags out, whatever, everybody comes out. And guess who else comes out? All the queers of Barrie. Because we don't have any queers here, right? So anyway, this loser lost the election. He also, in 5 years, loses his business. Oh well, so sad. Not really. And after this bake sale, some people come up and go, "So when's the next time we're going to have this pride?" And I'm like, oh crap, we gotta do this again. So a year later, we have another Pride in Barrie. It's a little bit bigger. Next year, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger. Now we're on year 6 this year. My baby. I'm proud to say we're becoming a 501c3 now. We're doing all this great stuff. We're having more and more stuff. But I didn't know my life was going to change this much. So thank you, all the queers of Barrie, for coming out to that one bake sale.
Hi, is Mark here? Mark? No?
Shy?
No, Mark here? Erica, is Mark here?
I don't know, Mark.
Oh, I thought,
It's the one queer I don't know in Barrie. Maybe he's from Barrie town.
maybe. Danny here. Hey, Danny, come on up. Good to see you.
Oh, that's a little hard one to follow, but I'm on the Barrie Pride Planning Committee actually after meeting Erica and Joe, and might be coincidence, but I was the one that put the Yelp review in Yelp saying not to shop at that bakery because there's a bigot that runs it, and a year later he's gone, so who knows. But my story is in 1996 when I was going to school at George Mason University, which is in Fairfax, Virginia. It's where I've lived most of my life, but my dad is from Vermont, and we have roots that go back past 1919. So I have lots of family here. That year, I was also part of a Pride group on campus, and we were planning that semester's Pride. It was every spring, and we thought it'd be great to have drag queens for the first time on campus to ride out the week. So that was going to be like the big finale. But we also decided that we should have a panel discussion between the drag queens and a black male to female trans woman. And she was going to talk about her transition. So the day comes, we got all the professional drag queens from DC to come down and do their little performance. They knew not to expect tips because this was an educational experience for the students. And I hadn't seen that student union building packed since they rolled out the TVs for OJ's verdict. So it was pretty packed. And it was a good show. And then came the panel discussion. And what we were not prepared for were the drag queens being so vicious. They literally said, "We are not that. We are not that. We have, a penis. At the end of the day, our wigs come off, our heels come off, our makeup comes off, the dress comes off, and we still have a dick." And we were sidelined. Anyway, the trans woman still got up to speak, but by the time she got up there, she was in tears. And I felt terrible. But after that, I graduated. That was my last semester there. And fast forward to 2009, George Mason makes the national news because they voted in their first drag queen for homecoming queen. So I'm reading the article, and they're talking about Ryan Allen, who goes by Rhiannon Balsley when he's in drag, and was the MC for the twice annual drag show that was happening at George Mason, which that wasn't our intent. We didn't think it was going to be an annual thing, especially after it went so badly. But it was twice annual because the first semester was to welcome the students and see how diverse we are. And in fact, they had invited students to participate, so there was a lot of student participation in the show. And then, of course, they had one in the spring. So we went to that drag show in the spring and met Ryan Allen, and we just had no idea that it would turn into this twice annual thing. So out of something bad, something good came of it. Thank you.
This is so much fun. Next, we're going to have Monica DiGiovanni. Welcome.
So I have a story about faith. This is my second time doing this story, and as I've been going through my ideas, I keep coming across all of my origin stories. The last one you guys missed was the first time I came out to myself and realized, I was like, oh, you could be attracted to somebody of the opposite sex. Interesting. But this one is about faith. In 2021, my spiritual teacher died very suddenly of a heart attack. She was in perfect health, and it completely crushed me. It was totally unexpected. It left me fairly devastated, and I still miss her very much. So I have always been prone towards spiritual exploration ever since I was a little kid. When I was about 10 years old, my grandmother, who had been living in our house with cancer, died, and my parents got divorced. I was the oldest daughter, and I had been taught that when you needed advice, you go to the church. And as I was preparing for this, I looked up the distance that I walked, but I decided on my own to walk to the church where I was visiting sometimes. It was a Catholic church, Sacred Heart in Milford, Massachusetts. It was an hour-long walk that I walked. I was 10 years old, to the church, to downtown Milford. I walked around the church, banging on the doors. Nobody answered. And in hindsight, that was probably a good thing that a 10-year-old could not get into a Catholic church. And so I went to the other church, St. Mary's, same thing, and didn't get in. Started walking back by myself, and at some point, I remember this very clearly, stopped, looked up, and I realized that God does not exist in a building. God is everywhere. And so from that point on, I had my own faith, and a lot of it had to do with nature, of communing with grasses and trees and insects. And moving along from that, I eventually, when my dad was kind of on his path after divorce, he was raised Italian Catholic. He eventually, and I don't know how he found it, he found the Siddha Yoga ashram in Massachusetts. During one of our custody visits, he sat my brother and I was probably 11 or 12, my brother's a couple of years younger, sat us down on pillows, lit some incense and candles, turned out the lights, pushed play on a tape deck, and was playing a chant from the Siddha Yoga, which I still remember, but I can't say right now because I'm nervous. And he said, okay, meditate and chant. And we're like, no idea. My brother was up and out immediately, and I was like, okay, kind of weird, totally weird, out of our scope of reference. I stuck around a little bit, got bored. I was out of there. Down the years, I was given a book from the ashram. I learned it from cover to cover, all on my own, all the meditations, all of the yoga postures, all of the breathing exercises, never having had a teacher. Years later, I moved to Portland, Oregon, started seeking out classes because I didn't know you could go to classes and do yoga with other people. And every time I went to a class, people kind of fell away. The teachers kind of disappeared. And so I was on my own. Tried others, it was like pagan for a little while, and tried being like more Hindu, yogi, all of these different things. The Catholicism dropped away pretty quickly. And then eventually did my yoga teacher training, went to Kripalu, was sitting in front of pictures of Yogi Kripalu. I'm like, no, not that. And then eventually someone told me about the Zen temple where I still practice. I got to the base of the driveway and I looked and I was like, it was a homecoming. Something felt very right. And then I met my teacher, and she looked me in the eye, and she's looking at me in the eye, face to face. And I was like really skeptical, because at one point during one of the yoga journeys, I was invited to go to a commune in Texas and join a yogic cult. So I was like skeptical, but it didn't take long before I realized this person had incredible integrity, was very wise, and that I could really trust her. And so I went through a series of Zen rituals, and which sounds kind of weird, but it's all kind of wrapped up in that. And became a formal student of the Zen practice. And then, like I mentioned, she died. So that kind of broke me, and the best word I could describe myself was rudderless for years, up until probably recently. And it really questioned my faith. And when I talk about faith, I think of faith as the opposite of apathy. And to have faith in something is to believe in something greater than yourself, that is a shining light, a guiding star, that helps you be a person who can walk the earth and be not horrible to other people. And so here we are. We had whistles and they had guns, right? We had whistles and they had guns. Renee's wife wrote this in her letter, her statement last week. And so I end my story with a question. What does it take for a person to believe in whistles and not believe in guns? Thank you.
And for our last, unless we have a spontaneous person who wants to come up and do a story. Yeah? Well, I know Erica's coming up, but after Erica, we might have some time if anybody feels inspired. So come on up, Erica Patel. And just before, I just want to tell everybody, there's a sign-up sheet over there for anybody who would like to tell a story for next time. So please sign up, and we'll give you all the details via email. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Hello. Hello. I'm Erica, which is a new name for me. And it has nothing to do with the name that I was given when I was born, a long time ago. That name is officially dead. But I want to tell a story about something that happened when I was still very young, a little boy. And we lived in a rural area, something like Vermont, but it was in New York State. And the reason we lived there was because after the war, World War II, where my father, and in fact all the men in my family, were soldiers or sailors, after the war, my parents decided to move to the country. And I was already 3 years old at that time. So there we were, far from everything, isolated and lonely. And I believe I wasn't the only one in the family that was in that condition. A few years later, I was in school, little local elementary school, which was also a junior high school and was also the high school. In fact, when I finally graduated many years later, some of the same students were boys and girls I went to kindergarten with. That doesn't happen very often anymore. Anyway, so I was in second grade, And my father had some business connections. I don't really understand what they are, but he needed to go to New York City. And we had a car that was not capable of making that trip. So he took the bus, and he was gone for the entire day. And when he came home in the evening, he gave me a gift. It was a compass, a little metal compass with a glass top. Oh, I loved that compass so much. I couldn't leave it. I kept playing with it because I adored my father. He was like a god. He was tall and beautiful and handsome and clever. And he brought me that gift. So the next day, I went to school, and I took the compass with me, of course. And I had it on my desk. And somehow or other, in the course of the day, I knocked it off the desk, and it broke. And I was heartbroken. And we had a student teacher, Miss Casey, beautiful young woman, and she did her best, hugged me and tried to make me feel better, but I wouldn't be consoled. So came home on the school bus, and I told my father what had happened. I showed him the broken compass, and he said, "It's okay. It wasn't a very expensive compass." That was the worst thing he could have said. And I could not stop crying. It wasn't a very expensive compass, as though there could be a value of dollars and cents on that gift. Well, I remember telling that story many times to friends and acquaintances. And years later, when I first got into therapy, the therapist that I was seeing at that time was a pastoral counselor in the Episcopal Church. He was the chaplain in a local hospital. And he said to me, "Your parents never gave you a moral compass." And that statement has stayed with me my entire life from then until now. And recently, after a whole lifetime of what is that new word that we all know now, dysphoria, which when I first heard it, I had to look it up. The opposite of euphoria. Think of that. And so now I'm in the process of transitioning and using gender-affirming hormone therapy and counseling. And I'm glad to say, at this point, I have a compass.
All right.
Anybody else out there? Last call. No? All right. Please sign up, though. We need our readers. And also, I'd like to give a shout out to Lovejoy over here. She helped me, when I was first thinking about starting this. We had a long coffee and lunch, and it was really great, and she's done wonders with this event herself over the years, and other things like karaoke, not karaoke, but yes, and had a big event. So thank you very much, and thank you all for coming.